is going on anyway? Hi again, it's me, your host, Anne Headley, and this is my podcast, What is Going On Anyway? It's a full moon, and as an act of kindness to myself, I'm going to set a reminder on my phone 1 week before the next full moon. It will say, "Dear sweetheart, everything's going to be fine. You will feel full and overwhelmed this week. I'm just reminding you about the moon. This is the full point, and it will pass." You know, every full moon, I forget. It's like something comes over me. It's like having low blood sugar and you forget that all you really need to do is eat because you're freaking out. And I get to this point with the full moon and I'm like, it can't keep going on like this. It's nothing to do with the full moon. It's just sort of the way my life has accumulated up to that point. I don't know if there's a resolve for it. Well, the resolve is, of course, getting through the moon cycle, but I don't know if there's a way that I can actually prepare for it. But knowing that this is coming is really handy for me. So here I am, and today is the full moon. So we've gotten to that pinnacle point, and at this point we'll start slowly de-escalating this feeling. This is what I'm hoping for myself. I know it's true, right? We keep doing this together. I've done this following the moon for a while now, and it happens every time. It's a big tide comes in and a big tide goes out and life carries on. I think this little reminder, I'm going to put it in my phone as soon as I'm done here. Dear sweetheart, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Just to remember. And sometimes I would do that when I had really regular periods. My periods are all over the place right now. So I can't rely on that feeling, but I used to get perimenopausal. I'm so perimenopausal right now. I used to get premenstrual. That's the word. And I wouldn't know why I was feeling so intense. And then I would look at my calendar and I'd be like, oh, because I'm just about to get my period. And then it didn't necessarily change the feeling, but that sensation of understanding why I might be feeling that way helped me de-stress. So that's what I'm saying with these moons. They are a regular sensation of fullness. And I want to talk about that fullness a little bit more. Most of you know I do animal communication on the side. And I've been doing animal communications for my friend Mandy, but she became my friend through animal communication, which is a deeply special relationship. But we've been working together for many years now. And Toby came to me through animal communication as a very sweet being in dog form who had been hurt and confused by the injustices of the world. He just didn't understand why things didn't feel better. And Mandy brought him into her family and showed him the richness of daily life, the joy of family, the depth of healing grief, and the wonder of meaningful work. He showed me the complexity of a full life with its sorrows and its joys, and he believed with all of his being, little being, he wasn't a big dog, that life is worth it. He loved living. And Toby died last week with a fullness of heart that is to be admired and esteemed by all of us. He filled himself up completely. He's such a sweet creature. And Mandy unexpectedly found herself open to bringing a new dog into her life very quickly after his passing, and she was worried that it was too soon. And Toby came back to give me one more message. He said, "Tell her that I'm not upset about this at all. She is like a restaurant that serves the bestest food in the universe. I'm all filled up. Why would I deny that joy to anyone else? And I think this message is, it was, for me, it hit me right in my heart of love isn't exclusive, It is a thing that fills us up. And Mandy said to me later, I was filled by filling him up. It's reciprocal and mutually beneficial, of course. I think experiencing daily awe and wonder, those little tiny bits of it, that is a way of filling us up. Like Toby got completely filled up. We can't take it all in at once, just as we can't eat all the food that we will ever need in our life in one sitting. This kind of filling up is meant for the routine and the pleasure of daily life, and these little things that keep us going through the good and the bad, through the sorrows and the grief. So I was driving along watching the full moon, watching the moon getting more full. It wasn't the full moon yet. Looking at that moon and wondering about this week's podcast. And it's not that the moon said this to me, but the thought came so strongly that it is about the small things that we're meant to focus on in this next 2-week cycle. What is it about the smallest of things that change our worlds, that change our worldview? How can we become even more subtle and complex in the way we affect our beingness? How do we live our daily life in a way that includes awe and wonder? How do we affect our home, our friends' circles, our workplaces? And again, the question comes up is, how can we use even more appreciation, which I think of as a heart song, to shift the way we perceive the world? And not just the way we perceive it, but I mean it in the sense of the way we take the world in and through us. Just last night, I was in my own bedroom, and I could hear 1, 2, 3 boys making their content at home noises. No one needed me. We were just all being home together. And there's a kind of harmonious peace in that moment. I'm so acutely aware that this is not how home life will look forever and ever. They're all growing. They will find their own lives in different places. And I can feel that sense of, that's a kind of awe of the moment, that it's so precious because it is not the way it will always be. This peace, that sense of harmonious peace of, just for that moment, everybody content at home, rustling about. It's so fleeting. I can almost taste the difference and that sense of starkness of not having them there. So I'm savoring that layer of home, knowing that I guess I'm feeling sentimental this full moon. It's like I feel a little teary just this whole time talking about how special this moment in time is. And can I take note of everything, all the people in my life that are still alive, It always keeps shifting. I'm feeling that sense of, can I appreciate this particular time? Because on the flip side of it, the world feels chaotic, and it feels like something that I want to escape from. So I'm looking for the balance of that in finding and seeking all the ways that I can appreciate life as it is right now. One of the ways that I cultivate appreciation is through an experience or relationship with intuition. And it occurred to me that Eric Schiffman wrote this book. It's called Yoga, the Spirit and Practice of Moving into Stillness. And I remembered that he gave very specific instructions about how to do this. This is an excerpt from Chapter 11, Listening for Guidance. Inner guidance is the means of right action. It is how you can know what to do. It is your deepest knowing made conscious. And as you learn to trust and make use of this faculty, it can become your decision maker. The more experience you have with it, the better you get at utilizing the information available to you, the more convinced you'll be of just how wonderful an attribute of the mind this actually is. Listening for guidance is the technique of spontaneous wisdom. The practice is this: ask, listen, and do. Ask for guidance, listen inwardly for your deepest impulses, and dare to do what these prompt you to do. Dare to gather your information from more than your 5 physical senses only, and go beyond your own best reasoning. Practice leaning into your intuitive ability. Practice accessing your greater capacity to be aware. Get better and better at hearing inner guidance. And practice on easy things like what to buy or what to eat or what to wear, so that when you're faced with a decision about something more important, you will be in the habit of seeking silent counsel from the universal wisdom available to you in the depths of your own consciousness. You may, for example, have 3 or 4 things to do today. List them in your mind and mentally say, I want to do what you, capital U, would have me do. What would you have me do? Which of these 4 things should I do first? Then relax, listen, and feel. Listening for a feeling, an insight or idea, or some sort of impulse to action. One of them will light up somehow as being the most appropriate one to do first. Do that one. Then ask, which one now? And do that one that lights up. The answer will not always come in words. It might be a voice, it might never be a voice. It will probably come in the form of a sudden intuitive knowing without the use of any rational thought process. And I would say my commentary here is I forgot how specific Eric was in this book and how wonderful and generous this offering is to all of us to very simply tap into our intuition and allow ourselves to be amazed by our own ability to be guided by something that we really trust. Eventually, it takes a little while, but something that we really trust. It gives us a way to explore the inside of us, the interiority of our being, and that sometimes can be hard to access in the Western culture. And I called on the Oracle. What do you have for us these 2 weeks? What advice would you give, dear Oracle? The hexagram that I got back was 39. It is. And as soon as I got it, I was like, oh, how about I wanted to throw the I Ching again, and I thought I might, but I resist that temptation because it is that desire to turn away from the obstacle, which is the hexagram that we got. So hexagram 39 is limping or obstruction. It is the image of water over mountain. So if you imagine a mountain stream, it's filled with obstructions, with boulders, and the water has to move around the obstruction, and that is the advice for us now. The questions to consider are: where can you find help? How could you see the obstacles differently? And can you imagine going a different way? Think about the way water has to travel, not in a straight, direct line, but all around the boulders and stones and obstacles, the tree limbs in its path as it goes down the mountain. When life has become an uphill struggle, it's wise to fall back to a realm of friendly allies. So this is a time to take a step back from the struggle and connect with people more than with ideals. I can think of that just personally in my life right now. Rather than thinking about the ways that I'm struggling through different things in my life, trying to reach certain goals, to affect change in certain ways, if I think about the connection with the people in those realms, that takes a big load off, that the connection with people is actually the way that I will make it through those obstacles. I know we've heard this before, but it's worth repeating. Even if the responsibility is yours alone, the work need not be. I know for myself, I just don't have an ingrained sense of being receptive to help. I have to really work to ask for help and to make connections. I don't have any trouble helping, but when it's my goal and I need to ask for help, I find that really a struggle. So I'm assuming that this hexagram is out there for us to become receptive to our allies and maybe seek them out. It says, seeing great people helps you to keep traveling towards your long-term vision, despite the obstacles and course corrections. You may literally find a great person with the experience and wisdom to reorient you. You may be guided by an inner vision of human potential. So we've got outer wisdom in the form of great people, and we've got inner wisdom in the form of connecting to our intuition, a la Eric Schiffman. We get two changing lines, 1 and 5. 1 says, if you've met with an obstacle in your path, do not attempt to overcome it. Instead, pull back from the situation and wait out the trouble. You will know the right moment for action when you can move with ease, which is also the wisdom of yoga, which is that yoga is meant to be inside of your ease, that the real yoga exists not in struggle, but in being with ease. And the 5th line, even in the most desperate struggles, your spirit alone will attract helpers. This cooperation will bring you success in your endeavors. Obstacles will give way. All of this feeling very positive, and yet it moves to hexagram 36, which is called brightness hidden. It is fire under earth. When no one is looking, who are you? How do you safeguard that light? Now, just curiously, recently, I was talking with a friend, hadn't seen her in a long time, and we showed up at an art opening together, had a long conversation. I don't know why we went so deep so fast, but suddenly I was saying, sometimes I have an afternoon free where nobody is home. I don't have any appointments. I don't have anywhere to be. And I'll get in the tub and then I'll go in and out of the tub, like get really hot and then lay on the bathroom floor. And I don't yet know how long I would do that if no one was looking. And that is this question of the hexagram that we find our way to. When no one is looking, who are you? And I think I'm a little bit afraid of that question. I'm a little bit afraid of being considered non-productive, lazy. It's sort of these capitalist questions of worthiness. Who am I if all I really want to do when no one's looking is just get in a hot tub and then get out of a hot tub? And, some people would say, well, you need that time as a recharge for the other things that you find yourself inspired to do. But I think there's a little bit of me that is afraid of that question. Who am I if no one's looking? The other question is, how do you safeguard that light? So it's sort of a deep question. And also, this hexagram besides just being darkening of the light. Some scholars also call this hexagram censorship. So that would point to, not everyone needs to know how long I spend in the bathroom. You know what I mean? So it says, I'm just going to read this to you. You are directly confronted by forces that threaten both your convictions and the attainment of your goals. Unfortunately, your position in this situation is not powerful. It will be necessary to submit to this time of personal censorship and step into the background. You must conceal your feelings. Make it a point to appear externally accepting of a difficult environment. It's both useless and dangerous to expound your convictions, and by doing so, you will only invite further difficulties. However, do not lose sight of your principles for even 1 second. You know what your goals are. It's tremendously important to maintain a fierce inner awareness of them during times when they seem almost unattainable. With this attitude, you can strengthen your character and thereby put yourself in a position to transcend this formidable time. It is a poor time to challenge the opinions of others in social interactions. Take note. Let things pass, even though they are contrary to your beliefs or aims. You will find that those around you are not sympathetic to your vision. Hide your feelings, but still maintain your inner convictions. It would be wise to react as though you were in agreement with your adversaries and yet do nothing to actively help them. Generally, keep a low profile and postpone any political aspirations. There's lots of politics going on right now, right? And people generally feel pretty strongly one way or another, and maybe now is a time to just watch and let your inner fire, your convictions around whichever way, however you're feeling, let them simmer for a moment. It's just a moment because we're going to hit that new moon before you know it, but this might be a time to lay low if you are somebody that tends to not lay low in that regard. Last time I also pulled an oracle card, and I want to do it again this time. I'm using the Soul Oracle cards by Sonia Choquette. And we get the card, Build on Solid Ground. It's a picture of a multi-branched tree with roots going down and branches coming above the ground. And in the branches are the moon, the earth, and the sun. Here's what it says. Are some things collapsing before your eyes? Are you facing trauma, sudden illness, or loss? Do you worry that all hell might break loose? I think this is a good card for us. No, your world isn't falling apart, nor are the gods angry with you, although it may feel like it. What's crumbling are simply those elements of your life that have been built on shaky ground. And I would say not of your life, well, maybe, but of this construction of our society. The good health you've ignored becomes illness. The commitments you've dishonored gives way to separation. The finances you've exploited transform into debt. You may feel that it's the end of your world, and yes, indeed, it is the end of those aspects that aren't solidly grounded. But be glad, because it's far too stressful to pretend that all is well when it isn't. Things are breaking down, but it's not because you're being punished. Rather, it's because they were never safe and solid in the first place. And I'm adding, maybe capitalism, patriarchal capitalism wasn't a safe ground for any of us because it wasn't based in equality, ever. Your soul's purpose right now is to create a life based on a firm foundation and genuine integrity, not superficial appearances. And it says your soul's lesson. Scrutinize the bedrock of your life and invest your time and effort into soundly recreating it. But don't try to shore up shaky ground. Instead, step aside and let things collapse. What is true will emerge from the dust, and what is false will disintegrate. View your losses not as your worst nightmare, but as your liberation. Feel the freedom that comes from no longer living in denial and trying to sustain something flawed. Let the chips fall where they may. At least you'll know where you stand. Okay, I'm just taking that as the sort of current state of things in our world. So I'm always wondering about this new world that we're creating together. And yep, build on solid ground feels like a good card. So that is our full moon. For the next 2 weeks, go easy, lay low. This next new moon may offer us some ground to plant in. I'm guessing, hoping, thinking. In the meantime, if you're curious about my online somatic practice connected with this podcast, you can go to www.annheadley.com, and there's a current video there. And you can just follow along or check in or scroll through or skip ahead and see what's going on there as well. You can always support me privately or through my Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/watermoonstudios. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, be well.